Writing. Can balanced literacy have any impact? First presented at Research Ed, August 2019. We're all working at the coalface, but in my job, I deal with the canaries. Those are the children for whom current educational practices are not working. I've seen fads come and go, but in the last decade, I've had to spend a lot of time undoing the fatal habit of guessing at words rather than reading them all the way through. This talk is about how being encouraged to guess also impedes progress in writing. The question that needs to be put to those who defend guessing as a strategy is this: how will guessing help them write? Fluent reading relies on sight word recognition. Fluent writing relies on sight word recall. To build a sight word vocabulary, SWV, typically developing children need 1 to 4 exposures to words. Not 1 to 4 exposures to pictures, not 1 to 4 exposures to first letters, and not 1 to 4 exposures to sentences containing skipped words. They need exposure to words. Balanced literacy, a definition for which can be tricky, as the goalposts constantly move in any debate with its proponents, often places the act of guessing words front and centre. I see children in my practice look away from unfamiliar words when reading spans of text. What leads to this is Ken Goodman's flawed theory of sampling. He says that children sample just enough visual information to make meaning. I see this everywhere, and it's not true. The result of it is children who guess. I see teachers write about how they don't give feedback on spelling errors, preferring to call them approximations. My questions in this situation are: how do children learn the words if they're not looking at the words? How does sampling lead to recall? And can you map out a clear path from making approximations to accurate spelling? I ask those who promote balanced literacy what they do when their methods don't lead to accurate spelling. And even if there are spelling lessons in a balanced literacy classroom, how do students practice what they've been taught without resorting to cramming or just absorbing correct spelling through reading? I would put writing at the apex of human endeavour. It's more complicated than reading and requires more time and practice than any of the other functions listed here, precisely because it relies on a skill in all of those functions. That's how I view writing, and that's why I try to get a stronger, more skilled focus on writing when I consult to primary schools. If you break the act of fluent writing down, you can see that there are many sub-skills. There are the mechanical sub-skills, including a comfortable grip, correct posture, and motor control. There are writing conventions, such as spelling, capitalization, punctuation, and syntax. And if all of that goes well, we can start to think about content, organization, vocabulary, editing, and so on. You can see that there are many sub-skills, many things that can go wrong, and many things that require explicit instruction. They also require good modelling, good correction, and excellent feedback. I'm particularly concerned with spelling. We can pretty much guarantee that all the students who come to see us will learn to read at my practice. Not so for spelling. How do we remember sequences? By looking at the sequences, not looking away. I see this poster, or a version of this poster, on school walls everywhere. My students get sent home with these pictures and prompts on laminated pieces of card. Some prompts are more useful than others, but what I would like you to do is take a minute and ask yourselves, which prompts are likely to contribute to writing development? Which prompts aren't? Why teach with prompts that don't contribute to writing development? Writing is the difficult flip side of the literacy coin. With reading, those prompts might help you fake it till you make it, but they will do nothing for your ability to write. Let's play look away bingo. We'll put a counter on each prompt that encourages looking away from a word. Number 1 is eagle eye. Look at the picture. Think, what is in the picture that starts with the beginning letter? Now, are you looking at the whole word all the way through, or are you looking away? That's a look away. Then we've got lips the fish. Get your mouth ready, whatever that means, and say the beginning sound. Not the rest of the sounds, the beginning sound. And then perhaps think about what the word could be. You're not processing that whole word. You are looking away from the word. We also have stretchy snake, and this is the only one that actually has a strategy that may lead to spelling improvement. Slowly stretch each letter sound to make the word. In other words, blend the graphemes, tie them with the phonemes, and say the whole word. Next we have chunky monkey. Break the word into chunks you may already know. The example given here is the letter M and then the word at. The words mat and at have nothing to do with one another. It's the same with flat and at, and then oddly, at in the middle of the word splatter. It's like saying there's the word meow in the middle of the word homeowner. It's nonsensical. It gets a counter. Then there's trying lion. Try to reread the sentence. So that means look away from the word. Think, what makes sense? Yep, that's getting a counter. Next we have skippy frog. Skip the tricky word. Okay, well, I don't need to go any further, do I? That's getting a counter. And then flippy dolphin. Flip the vowel sound. I think this is the phonics part of balanced literacy. Flip the vowel sound. Try the long and short sounds. Well, okay, but in the absence of rationale as to why a vowel would be making its long or short sound, as some people say, seems to be absent. I've made a special counter for the last bit. Always make sense, sound right, look right. I have no idea what that means. So I took all of those animals into the laboratory, and like Dr. Frankenstein himself, I made the guessing monster. Only Decoding Dragon can keep it away. Decoding Dragon says, go through the whole word from start to finish. It doesn't matter if you mispronounce it. You have mapped the sequence of letters. It doesn't matter if you don't recognize the word after you've pronounced the letters. You're still mapping the word. Of course you need help to pronounce that word. I'm not saying that you don't, but if you go through the word from start to finish, you will have begun the process of placing that word in its correct orthographic sequence into your lexicon. So let's compare the awe-inspiring task of reading to writing. To be able to write, you have to master all of the lower parts of this pyramid. This is something only humans can do, and it's something that relies on biologically primary skills, like learning language, walking upright, having a pincer's grip, and complex reasoning. It also relies on knowing and being able to use the alphabetic code. This is reading. The lower the quality of the reading instruction, the lower the written output will be. To the untrained ear, this little girl, who happens to be my niece, sounds like she's reading the title of this predictable reader fluently. She's doing nothing of the sort. She's faking it. Have a listen.
The cat and the mice.
She's doing what most children can do if you tell them the title and go through the book page by page, telling them what's about to happen. She can predict, memorize, guess, look at pictures like a pro, but it's fake reading and it won't help her write. Due to its complexity, you cannot fake writing. Writing requires sequential processing, letter by letter. Reading instruction that emphasizes anything other than sequential processing diminishes writing development. As Seidenberg said, learning to read is more difficult when the development of phonemic representations is impaired or discouraged by educational practices. I also wanted to talk about pen grip. Way too many children enter my practice having been allowed, presumably throughout their primary schooling, to hold their pencils in a variety of alarming ways. This isn't okay, especially since it's such an easy thing to establish and practice. But it takes structured, systematic teaching at the classroom level. It takes lots of practice and lots of correction and vigilance, and too many teachers are not trained to value such things. If you're a kindergarten or prep or reception teacher, I beg of you, don't let the grip slip. Establishing a tripod grip on a writing implement is massively important. Just like any other tool, the way you hold your pen contributes significantly to many things. It contributes to your skill with that tool. It contributes to your fatigue levels. It contributes to your finesse, your bodily comfort, and ultimately to your enjoyment and self-esteem. Writing is an apex skill, and an apex skill requires practice over time. Unlike walking and talking, reading and writing require explicit instruction. Writing requires even more practice than reading. Typically developing children enjoy the multiplier effect of writing practice. They form habits that help them continue to progress and become increasingly proficient. They scribble. They write little notes. They copy text in many different contexts. These are all the habits that typically developing children have. Habitual writing has a multiplier effect on children's skills. The act of writing or copying is something they do with frequency, and those rich in those habits get richer, while the poor get poorer. When a new student comes to see me, I have to give them a spelling, reading, and dictation test. More often than not, when they hear they'll have to write something, their faces fall, they groan, they come with a lot of baggage. There are three main things that contribute to this. First of all, there are arbitrary pen licenses. Secondly, being sent home week after week with words randomly put into spelling lists to be learned for a test causes writing aversion. Also, being kept in during breaks to finish writing tasks. These children need their downtime. If they're not completing their writing regularly, you have to ask yourself why. And it's not because they're lazy. I've yet to meet a lazy child. Instead, why not offer explicit, structured, and scaffolded opportunities to write? Here's an example of what I've developed to help with that. Firstly, fluent cursive handwriting helps not only with legibility, but with note-taking and with spelling. So often I see children who are still struggling to master the written code, overthink their spelling, and second-guessing themselves into corners. To that end, we offer explicit cursive classes for years 3 to 6 students. It's a shame that we have to do this. This is the job of schools. There are also examples of dysgraphia, children who have a disorder of written expression. We've all got our strengths and weaknesses, but sometimes forming letters on a page is very, very severe weakness for some children. In extreme cases, letter formation and organizing or expressing written information is caused by neurological impairment. This impairment is known as written expression disorder or dysgraphia. It's one of the reasons to explore technology. One student who I've been working with for 18 months now and who doesn't have dysgraphia has given me permission to document his case. The deal is I get to show his incredible progress as long as I refer to him as the best student in the world. I think that's a fair deal. Here's his overview. He was an undiagnosed dyslexic and now has a diagnosis. He received balanced literacy from grade prep, and within that balanced literacy was a great big code chart with millions and millions of pieces of code on it that he was supposed to somehow choose from randomly. He had made no progress in reading and writing by the end of grade 1. When his parents came to see me, they started feeling that there was something terribly wrong with him, and the school wasn't disagreeing. Here's an example of his first spelling test. He could write 3 CVC words correctly. These are his attempts for the other ones. After 7 months of intervention, he did much better. But what to do with all those words? He tended to avoid practice and he missed out on opportunities to form habits that helped him progress. This happened because he was stuck at the lower levels of literacy acquisition. The act of composing or copying was something that he avoided or did infrequently. So we put him onto the 21-day writing challenge. There he is, with his 21-day writing challenge sheet. It is a simple Excel spreadsheet with 3 columns, copying, dictation, and composition. The challenge is a way of allowing students to access the multiplier effect that habitual writing gives. I only see them for 1 hour a week, and that won't cut it to get them into the habit of writing. Children also tend not to initiate homework, so if I give them a framework, it makes it easier for them. It's a common myth that 21 days makes or breaks a habit, but it's a good starting point, so we called it the 21-day writing challenge. The first and easiest exercise is copying. There are plenty of things that they can choose to copy. We all keep the exercises short and sweet, so never more than 5 sentences is expected. With copying, we also give a short paragraph and have children time themselves to achieve a personal best score, or PB. In the meantime, copying develops their ability to hold larger spans of text in memory. Next is dictation. It's slightly harder than copying. I ask that students are read small paragraphs from texts at their grade level or below. Dictation is not timed, but they do get an accuracy score, and when they reach 80% accuracy or above, they move to the next grade level. The resource I use for this is the Visualizing and Verbalizing Stories from Gander Publishing. I'd love to author a less Americocentric series, but I don't have time right now. I highly recommend these books. The third element is composition, and for this, I start out with something called the survival list. Another facet of the balanced literacy curriculum is to have children memorize lots of whole words. There's a list of whole words that they have to memorize in just about every classroom that I go into. Edward Dolch, a psychologist working in the early 1900s, came up with what I call the mother list. Just about every rote memorization list in schools draws from this. I took the liberty of dividing the list into those words that could be decoded using pretty basic sound symbol correspondences and those that required explicit teaching, grouping into families or just a little more work to bring about accurate recognition and recall. Those are the words most deserving of time and energy. The other words are a waste of time and energy. What percentage of time and energy, then, is being wasted when all the words, regardless of structure, regardless of morphological kinships or etymological explanations, are being set for memorization? Well, the first column has 76% of words that are a waste of time rote learning. Same with the second column, and you can see as we go on what a waste of time rote learning this word list is. We can be more efficient than this. Here's an example of how you might teach the structure and family of a word that falls into the smaller category. You ask yourself, does this word belong in a close family? An example of a word list that is not a close family follows. This word list is a genuine homework assignment brought to me by one of my students. In this school's program, their entire school that week, the entire school, was studying the letter D, double D, as in duck. These are the words he had to memorize for a test on the Friday. His was the green section. Presumably the average kids got the red words and the above average got the blue. This is the phonics part of balanced literacy. It's like attempting to teach biology by saying, let's name all the things that have legs. Here's a close family, the word to, as in I'm going to the shops, features the letter O representing the sound oo. This is a good family to practice. Here are all the words, all the common words in that family and slightly less common ones. And that's it. Here's another interesting family. This time the letter O represents the sound A. There's a distinct pattern with these words. Can you spot what the pattern is? Learned together as a close family, we have more chance of placing those words into long-term memory. Students come to see me because of difficulty decoding and encoding words. We do structured, in-depth word-level work, incorporating orthography, etymology, morphology, and sometimes mnemonics. I find increasingly, though, that I have to help them with sentence and paragraph structure. I get so little time with these children that I'm constantly searching for techniques and resources to give them the greatest value. I don't have the luxury of seeing them for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's why our writing practice takes the form of exercises from The Writing Revolution by Judith Hochman and Natalie Wexler. The authors state that there's too much of a gap between explicit teaching and expectation. They say that writing needs to be taught through intentional exercises. For practice to improve skills, there has to be a specific and focused goal. The authors say that revision is a crucial, yet often neglected stage of writing, reading and thinking, and the three are indelibly linked. Lastly, they say that content knowledge is crucial, and writing should be embedded in all subjects. I didn't used to think that. I actually did think that there was too much writing required of high school students, and now I've realised that that's not true. If writing is embedded in all subjects, then learning increases. I learned about this because when I was writing in my last book, I learned a lot more than I would have if I'd just read about the subjects that it contained. The act of writing embedded deeply a lot of knowledge about reading. So to summarise, writing is a lot more complex than reading. Writing requires the combination and coordination of many more skills than reading. Writing doesn't normally precede reading. You can read without being able to write, but not really vice versa. So given that teaching reading is rocket science, teaching writing is off the planet. It mustn't be left to chance. It must be given explicit instruction. Do we need to keep children's eyes on the words or not? This is how to stay in touch with me. I have 3 online courses that go into lots of the subjects we've been talking about today and more. I also consult to schools, so if you'd like me to come and visit your school and help set your school on the path to even higher quality literacy instruction, do get in touch.